Oh boy, are you in for a treat today? Our guest in this 12th episode of The Odd Couple knows a lot about center of resistance, force, balance, and gravity. Let's say he's not afraid to get his feet wet. Dr. Scott McCranels is an orthodontist, but he's also a surfer. Now, is he an orthodontist who surfs or a surfer who orthodonts? That's for you to find out, but one thing for sure, he aligns trophies as well as he aligns teeth. I'm Stephane Reinhardt, Director of Education for the Clear Institute. Welcome to The Odd Couple.
Stephane and I, by invitation, are speaking with Dr. Scott McCranels. And Scott, you're located in, go ahead, tell everybody.
We are in West Palm Beach, Florida.
Are there
sunny
two?
South Florida.
Wait, you said are there two of you?
I actually have a new partner in orthodontics here, Dr. Thebes Alvarez, who's been with me a little over a year now. She is originally from Venezuela, but did all her college and dental schooling here in the state of Florida. So very fortunate to have her.
Yeah, that's something we're going to want to, I think, dive into a bit about associateships and partnerships. But the logo behind you, Scott, kind of just maybe duck your head a little bit. Yeah. So we can
more,
see...
a little bit more, a
Yeah.
little bit more, a little bit more.
How's that?
Yeah, that's
How cool is that?
It is a surfing Woody with surf dogs. All of them have braces. Of course, a couple surfboards. And the hood element is a little surfer. So it's all about surfing.
Yeah. It's all about surfing.
Why, Scott? Why?
Yeah, what? So you're in South Florida, West Palm, isn't that right?
Well, it all started once upon a time.
Yeah.
Actually, grew up, my dad was a very accomplished surfer. He was also a United States amateur champion, and he started me as a young kid, and I competed since I was probably 6 or 7 years old, and then went on and was a professional surfer for quite a few years. So that's the whole surfing theme. So.
But if you dial it back a little bit further, there was some skateboarding that was in there too, wasn't there, Scott?
Yes, I grew up skateboarding and surfing, and in Florida at the time, you did both. And I don't know if anyone remember, kind of in the 80s and 90s, skateboarding separated. It was real goth, everyone dressed in black, and they had pale skin, and they skateboarded in parking garages. But when we were young, we built little wooden ramps in the driveways, and there was a huge explosion of skateboard parks all around the United States and the world. And then because of insurance reasons and suing and everything, they kind of went under. And that's when street skating started. You saw kids on handrails and stairs, and because they closed all the parks, so it kind of made kids go to the street. And surfers and skateboarders kind of separated a little more. I did both, but then in high school, I was a professional skateboarder from 76 to 80 during high school. I traveled around just the United States, not international.
Now, when you say a professional skateboarder, would you elaborate on that a little bit? Because for people on the podcast, Scott and I are quite good personal friends, and I'm going to drop this in there that Scott is not very forthcoming in talking about these, what I will say are remarkable athletic accomplishments. So if you look at YouTube and find any of the things about Scott, you will notice immediately that when he's being awarded things, he's not quite delighted to be up getting these awards. So it really speaks to his character. But growing up in Milwaukee, where Lake Michigan was actually fairly far from my house, but there was no surfing on the lake, and skateboarding was just some sort of fantasy. So when you say you were a professional skateboarder, exactly, what does that mean?
So they delineate, at least they used to, between amateur and professional as if you got paid, sponsored with a paycheck, not free shirts or stickers or skateboard. You actually got a salary. And at the time, I actually was skated for Sims, was a big company back in the time, 70s and 80s. So Sims skateboards. And during high school, I would travel out to California from Florida with a group of other guys. We had the Sims East team versus the Sims West, which was in California. And so we had a bunch of 12 to 17-year-olds going out to California, and we thought this guy was really old. Our manager, Hunter Joslin, was about 24. So we thought he was very sophisticated and professional, and he was actually the chaperone for a bunch of 12 to 17-year-olds going around the state surfing competition or skating competitions for like 2 months, all in a giant blue Econoline van. It's just a recipe for disaster. So.
But
and was it a disaster?
yeah, how disastrous was it?
No, it was just fun. It was something right out of one of those stupid movies about high school kids just doing stupid things, having fun, and harmless fun compared to these days. Things are a little crazier, but it was fun. We had a great time, great experience. I wouldn't traded it for anything. So.
Is there because you said that a lot of surfers were also doing skateboarding or doing both? Is there an advantage of doing both? Does doing skateboarding helps when you come and you do some surfing, or?
Yeah, and it was it's a good question because there was a lot of overlap. It's similar muscles and motion of skateboarding versus surfing. The one thing that happened a lot in the 70s and 80s is surfers generally didn't do aerials where they pop off the wave and go in the air, but that was normal for skateboarders. So the people that did both, the skateboarders, kind of introduced that to the sport of surfing. So that was a huge kind of awakening in the sport. Like, wow, you can actually leave the surface of the ocean and land, and the skateboarders did it all the time. So that was a good point, because that was a huge advancement in surfing.
All right, so you were what age in the skateboarding era?
So 76 to 80 was high school, so that's pretty much, you're kind of in the 14, the high school was 14 to 18, those 4 years, and got to go to, travel with a bunch of other teenagers, being California with no parental units, our 24-year-old manager. So it was fun, we'd do some stupid things, and but we had a great time. It was harmless, but we had a great time.
What I'm curious about specifically, now that everyone knows that, 14, 16, 18 years of age, that's pretty young, especially 14. And as you think back about this now, even though you were so young, what's the main thing that you would say that you've retained, or Scott retained? What's the main thing that you say this had a big effect on me looking back on it, even though I was young?
I think it was a mini version of what prepared me for a little later when I turned professional surfing when I got out of high school in 1980. That's when I graduated. And the mini travel around the United States prepared me for international travel. And the young kids and everyone that does these sports now doesn't realize there's, no internet, no cell phone, no Google, no maps, and you basically travel around the U.S. and then around the world with no clue where you're going to stay, where you're going to go. You couldn't go to booking.com and make reservations. It's just, now I think about it, it's like, how the hell did I even do that? But it was fine. And, I just went around the world, got from one place to the other, and get off the airport and find out where the venue is for at the time it was international, the surfing contest. And I got a taxi and got there and went up and found a place to stay. Luckily, with the skateboarding as a high school, we had, of course, the very mature 24-year-old Hunter taking care of us. So, hotel rooms and stuff was taken care of. So that wasn't a concern. But I think you're still absorbing all this stuff. You got to make this, you show up here, you go there, you move, everything's in one bag or two, and you're living out of a suitcase. So, I think that, looking back, that mini version in the U.S. prepared me for traveling around the world, which I wouldn't really realize at the time, of course.
I think that as I think about it myself, what you're describing, and having done some international adventures myself. Yeah, but not at that young of an age.
So tell.
I think what it does is it gives you a remarkable amount of self-confidence, don't you think? I mean, you've got to deal with problems even when you were a kid. A young kid. It lets you know that you're going to have to make decisions. And Stephane and I have done a number of podcasts where we talk about that everything is competition. Competition is a constant. It's a shadow. It's a scepter. It can be a knife at your throat. You can be elated over competition. Don't you think, Scott?
Yeah, for me, I started competing, like I said, around 6 or 7, and so it was like ingrained. I don't remember learning how to surf. I was like 3 or 4. I was real little. Skateboarding, I remember a little more, but still, that was very early. And every weekend, we were at a skateboard competition or a surfing competition. It was just like normal. We'd all show up, same families would show up with the dads, with the kids. And at the same time, up until probably 8th grade, I played basketball, baseball, and football too. When I got to high school, that's where I turned professional skateboarding. I tried out for the football team, and they wouldn't let me miss some stuff because I had other competitions and the skates. So the coach at the time, now you are glorified if you're a multi-sport athlete. Yeah. At the time, you had to do one thing, and it was not acceptable if I missed a practice, I would never get to play in the game. I was running back. I could run kind of fast for a redheaded white guy. And so I was a receiver and a halfback and a safety. I played on both sides. And but at the time I played like 5 years in YMCA and grade Y football, all the stuff. But in high school, it just stopped. So I just totally turned my focus to skateboarding for quite a couple of years there. So I still surfed. But.
Was there some competition among yourself in your group of the East Sims? You had competition between the East and the West Coast, but among yourselves, was there also competition? Or
you had competitions in your county, in your region, and then the Southeast region, the whole East Coast. There was a stepping stone all the way up. Yeah, a whole hierarchy. I hated losing. I was like, in fact, I've tried to calm down from that era of just like, I wanted to just crush people. That was my whole thing. I hated losing. And I did whatever it took to win. So,
and do you like losing now, Scott?
Well, as I got older, I've had to kind of tone it down over the
Yeah,
couple decades.
not to a point where you like it. Certainly not.
This concept of athletics is something that I mean, I've competed in some sports myself, but yeah, it's a story for another time. But like,
does it have anything to do with chopsticks?
No, it has to do. I competed in designing writing instruments.
Well, I just was going with the theme.
I won the Nobel Prize for silly writing instruments. What I'm getting at is we think about today's parents, and I think everybody should be aware that Scott is an orthodontist. Well, and your dad was an orthodontist, but I think what is remarkable is today's parents, and I am not passing judgment. What I am saying is that we know about helicopter parents. The latest ones are called bulldozer parents. And bulldozer parents, the definition of which is clear the path from cradle to grave. My child never, ever, ever fails. And the parents will pick them up and do whatever it takes. But in sport, you have to learn how to compete. You're not going to win every time. And what I'm curious, and that's one of the things I think about is, but a lot of the newer generations, they don't understand the art and the elegance of failure. There's an elegant way to lose because you can't win every time.
You can't?
Well, you can win every time. It depends on your definition of failure. So since of the three of us and many people watching, Scott, you've done more competitions since you were quite young than probably most people that are ever going to listen to this podcast. Mm-hmm. How do you define failure?
I don't know. Going back to what you said about parents, I mean, my dad never had to push me. He just drove me there. I did the rest. He didn't need to say anything. He just got me there in the car, and I was driven. So that was never an issue. In fact, if anything, he just had to get out of my way, let me go out. So that was never a problem in our relationship with
but even the fact
between father and son, there was no helicopter, nothing like that.
No,
or bulldozer.
Certainly not, because just the fact that you know what you were saying, that you went away in these competition, going to California, as you were a young teenager. I mean, exactly like you said, there was no Facebook, there was no iPhone, you cannot call your parents easily. They could not have news from you easily like it is today. So at a certain point, they had to let go also. And I mean, for you, it also means, we have confidence in you, have confidence in life, and that's it. Don't you think also that it probably helps? What I find in dentistry, a lot of dentists, and I include myself, we're control freaks. We want to control everything. But I think that having experiences like you did, maybe just we probably learned from that let go, have confidence in other people. And like you said, the guy was 24, taking care of everything. You were there and you were going where he was telling you to go and doing what he was telling you to do. And there's probably a lot to learn from that.
Well, Stephane, what would be your definition of a win versus a failure?
If I learn something, I win.
Yeah, when I was younger, I couldn't even relate to that sentence.
Mm-hmm.
It was it's like anything less than first was unacceptable, and I had to figure out what did I do wrong so the next time I wouldn't make the same mistake. So I had a little notebook, and I was always writing down my mistakes so I wouldn't make them again. And always had to improve. You know, I was never there just to place. It was always to win, first place. That was like what drove me.
And how do you feel now? Because you said how old are you, Scott?
I actually, just a week ago, I turned 59.
Okay. So, now that you're past puberty, which I'm still waiting for mine, but how do you look at it now about the definitions of success and the fact that you have I've often joked with Stephane, and said I would never want to practice orthodontics anywhere near Scott McCranels.
Yeah, forget it.
No. So how do you look at things now that you've had all these experiences?
Well, first, I'll say that was very nice of you to say, but now I don't look as the orthodontic part as a competition. It's just providing the best service and care to the patient, and I know everything else will work out. If we treat them like you want to be treated, and as a parent, I always ask, what would you do for your kid? I said, sometimes I'll beat them to the punch. I'll say, well, if it was my child, this is what I would do, and I try to stick by that. And a lot of times, it's like having the new doc coming to the office. Been weird. It's been, my dad and I forever. I joined him in '95, and then he passed away a year and 4 months ago, Christmas. So it's having a new person, a new, someone outside the family. My mom's the bookkeeper. My older sister does the marketing and promotions and ordering. It's been a family practice since '67, in the same town. So we've got third generation on some families. So, it's just been here for a long time, basically the family name. But I don't look at it as a competition like I did surfing and skateboarding. It's just, I'm more about, I just want to make sure I don't screw up our family name. That's more what's important. It's like, it's very steady and it's been respected from what I know. No one said anything else to my face. But it's up to me not to screw it up. And that's what I'm trying to pass on to the next doc. Just don't mess it up, type of thing. So it's not really crush the other people, or, as you guys would know, if you could just educate enough people to do orthodontics and fix their teeth, there's more than enough for everybody. It's kind of like dentists alone don't need a bunch of, there's no cavities. If you could just replace all the fillings that are presently there that need to, you couldn't schedule them all. So it's more educating the patient. It's not trying to find you and steal someone. Just do everything that's right there in front of you. It's already like 1 degree of separation from your office. That's all. That's the way I look at it. I don't know if that kind of answered your question. But.
No, I think that's quite interesting that you're self-described as a what I call a rabid competitor as far as skateboarding and surfing, but when it comes to your identity in orthodontics and your identity for your family, it's completely different, isn't it? Isn't that what you just said?
Yeah, and you mentioned confidence earlier. I just feel very confident that we'll tell some people, it's, the old adage, sell a car walking away. If you're not comfortable, you have a question, go down the street, go somewhere else, go get a second opinion. Feel very confident. It'll just make you want to come back here more, because I don't want you to start here and then talk to some other people and feel like you have second-guessed yourself or regrets that you didn't go somewhere else. Go somewhere else. It's just going to make us look better. I'm not real worried about it. I'll give you a few names if you want. Doesn't bother me.
lot of your new patients, because like you said, the office is open since 1967. First, do you have space for new patients, or it's all people, word of mouth coming from all those years, or you still have?
Yeah, we constantly get new patients. As orthodontist, you have to, because it's not like the dentist. You're not going to have retainer checks forever to support, the revenue stream to carry your overhead. So, and it's funny because a lot of people will say, "Are you accepting new patients?" And it's funny, that's not their world. So of course we are. Why would you even think that? We're a specialist. They come in, we do our job, and they go back to their primary care provider for their teeth, the general dentist. And but you always hear that, and it's kind of funny. I said, no, we constantly need new patients. As much as we're starting new ones, that same month we're finishing a lot of them too. And you hope it's even, or you get more starts. It starts getting less, then by attrition, how can you stay in business?
And do you think, what's the fact that you're a professional surfer, that you did all this, how important do you think it is in the choice of your new patient to say, I want to go to McCranels because of what he did, because of what he is, because of the story of the, all the surfing and everything?
Yeah, I think people are really smart. They're not that gullible or starstruck or something, because that sparks their interest. But if they come in and they don't hear the right thing, we're not clean, and they don't feel safe, they don't feel like they're getting treated right, they have a great experience, the front desk, it's a whole culture that they won't come here just because that's kind of neat and kind of eye candy at first, maybe to schedule a consult. But in the end, if they're not getting treated right and getting a good result for a fair price, and we're not the cheapest. We're a boutique practice. We have 4 treatment chairs. That's it. We're only open Monday through Thursday. Never been larger than that. That's it. 4 treatment chairs.
How many employees do you have?
10. And I got 3 of them are part-time.
Okay. Yeah, that was one of the things that I wanted to bring up about the character of the practice. And you only have one location, right?
One location. When we were growing up, there's a town about an hour north called Fort Pierce. It's an hour north of West Palm Beach, and there is a great surfing spot in that town. It's called North Jetty. It's an inlet. So my dad strategically bought an old house and went up there one day a week on a Wednesday with my mom, charts and a bag of instruments, and he would see the community up there every Wednesday. Now, on Friday night, we had the Volkswagen camper van. We would pile in there, and it was an old house. He kept one, the kitchen was in the back, and there was one bedroom. The other was the living room, treatment area. So it was a 3-bedroom. One bedroom had bunk beds in it. That was basically the business write-off for the hangout. That was the surf shack every weekend. So instead of driving back and forth, he used that. We'd stay there, surf, at this North Jetty place, and then go back. Because when I was real little, we had a family of 6, 4 kids, 2 adults, in a 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment. So we couldn't wait to go somewhere else. We all shared one bathroom. And then my dad was like the first one in his family to go to college. Came from nothing. So we moved from that eventually when I was first grade. Then we moved up to a place like 15 minutes north called Singer Island. It's a barrier island, so we're walking or biking distance or skateboarding distance to the beach. And basically I had my own bedroom. It was the freakiest thing after 4 kids. I had 3 sisters and myself in one little room. You could barely open the door by the headboard of one of the bunk beds. And the 2 bunk beds, we just jumped back and forth. You could barely walk between them. And this was like a shoebox. In today's world, they'd think you're, poverty stricken. But back then, we just thought it was the coolest. But then we moved to this big house, and it was 4 bedrooms. From that, I had my own bedroom and bathroom. I don't kind of remember it as well, but my parents said it was a 2-story house too. It was like, might as well have been the White House, a mansion or something, the Biltmore or something. You walked upstairs, and all the bedrooms are there, and you walked in this vestibule into all the bedrooms. They said the first couple nights we all slept in the vestibule area, not in our bedrooms, in sleeping bags, because we were so used to being together. We were scared to go in the rooms by ourselves. My mom still tells that story to this day. They just laughed and let us sleep there until we slowly migrated into our little space. That was kind of funny.
I think it's
that's a human nature thing right there.
It's a remarkable thing to hear about, because I think without that description and that visual, people would think, since I just mentioned that your dad, who went by Chummer, is what he went by his name.
Okay.
People would have said, well, he was an orthodontist, and he was in South Florida. He must have been printing money there. I mean, this guy, McCranels, he must have grown up with a lifestyle. They had a jet, anything they want, these kids. So that's certainly not what it was at all.
No, I always, travel around surfing, and everyone's like, oh, silver spoon, you had to hand, your dad's a doctor, you had to hand to. I basically used money from skateboarding and surfing, and I paid my way through all my schooling, undergrad, dental school, residency, myself through my winnings. And actually, these days, it's insane, the amount, hundreds and sometimes, almost $1 million these kids get out. I actually got out of my residency and had 0 debt. So it was basically a surfing scholarship you could look at, even though there's no such thing for that type of stuff. But indirectly, that's what it was. So if anything was the biggest accomplishment, that was it. It kind of gave me a huge jump start, because, basically some people, it's a house that they still owe, and that's a big house. They still owe before they, start working.
Well, I've never asked you that, this question, but your dad, how do you think that your dad felt about the fact that you were paying your own way? And I mean, I know you well enough that with your mother and father, you never had your hand out. No. How did I'm curious.
There was once in a blue moon, oh, you're, $100 here, $200 here for this or that. And, every once in a blue moon, I had to get the car fixed or something. But so when I was in undergrad dental school and ortho residency, I was all in the southeast U.S. Luckily, I never got into a school that was in the Midwest. That would have just crushed the whole system I had going. I was in Gainesville for undergrad, and then I was in Charleston, South Carolina for dental school. Then I was in Augusta, Georgia for residency. So I could go anywhere in Florida, Jacksonville, New Smyrna, North Carolina, Myrtle Beach, anywhere there were surf competitions. I'd do whatever I could to get ahead and miss clinic or do something to leave on a Friday. So I could go, win 500, 750, $1,500, $2,000, something that would get me through the next few months for rent and books. And so talk about motivation. I'd go to the contest. There's a big contest in Virginia called the ECSC, East Coast Surfing Championships. It's the second longest running contest in the world besides Bells Beach, which is in Victoria near Melbourne, Australia. I think they have them by 1 year. Otherwise, it'd be the longest. Well, the first prize is $3,000 back then, which was a lot back in the day. And so my freshman year, I've got to buy instruments. Instruments are $3,000 that year. I only got about $500 in my bank account. I'm up there, I got biochem, I got pharmacology, I got all my books. I'm up there in the hotel room. You know, I got friends of mine, okay, your heat's in, like you're in 4 heats, they're 20-minute heats. You're up in like 40 minutes, you know, I'm like, okay, just tell me when I get a little closer. Grab my board, run out, get in the heat, I advance. So I'm studying the whole weekend because I had a test on Tuesday. This is a weekend contest. Just 1 heat to that. You couldn't like plan the stuff. And if I thought I would, I would have never done it. So I'm just trying to just get through the next heat. I end up winning, and I get $3,000 to go back and buy my instruments. It's a wash. Boom, done. Like weird stuff would happen. It was like Cinderella stories. Like, how does this even? Like, I think back on it, it's like that's just you have no control over that. It's just stuff happens, you know. And they're training and practicing. I hadn't surfed in like 2 months. I'm in dental school.
Well, now that begs a question. All right, so you haven't surfed in 2 months. You do not intend to do anything but take the first place, take the championship. But
well, yeah, you know, I mean, my whole theory, people that say, "Oh, you just got to show," it's like, if you're not wanting to win, you shouldn't even compete. Like that's like, you don't shoot for the quarterfinals. You don't shoot for the semi. You shoot to win. And if you don't get there, there's a reason. Something happens. You know, bad luck, poor preparation. You're just not good enough. You don't have natural thing. But you only enter a contest to win. That's it. Like, to me, like, it's not even a discussion. But don't compete. Just go have fun doing it. Then.
Yeah.
Now, why do it?
But it's a curiosity that, for example, in this tournament that you're mentioning just now, that you hadn't been surfing very often because you were in dental school, and this is a fairly major competition with a $3,000 award, and you won even though you hadn't been practicing. So, what's the mindset? Is kind of what I'm interested. Can you describe that at all?
Well,
other than you came to win.
Yeah, it's not. The timing was. I'll back up a little. So from 84 to 87, I left school. I took a leave between my junior and senior year of undergrad. And I got offers and some things came. I went on the world circuit. So I went around the world 8 times. I went to Japan twice a year, South Africa, I surfed Australia, Indonesia. I was all over. So I had 3 years of nothing but surfing. That was it.
Did they have?
This was on the world stage, a much high, the highest level. What they have now, they called the WSL. Then it was called the ASP. So when I come back to go to senior year of college, applied to dental school, got in Charleston. To me, it's more like muscle memory, and I was at the highest level. So this was nothing degrading this, but it was an East Coast competition after trying to surf the best in the world. So the training part of missing a month or 2 wasn't as big a deal. It was more just, can I go out there, do I have the right equipment? Because I'm not really focused on school. Do I have the right boards and things for the conditions? And can I just go out and use my experience but not make bonehead mistakes, which competitors do all the time? They're just not focused, or they just miss something. So I actually ended up winning that 2 years in a row during dental school, which was kind of ironic. I surfed in a bunch and I couldn't win it the other times. But I won it when I needed to.
didn't you have some surf stuff that people were marketing? Because for those of you that might be curious, Scott does not color his hair. Stephane does. I don't. But you had a line of surfing stuff that had your name on it.
Yeah, it wasn't. I related to like baseball. You go to Japan. I'm 6'1", red hair, blue eyes. I stand out. You can be the B-rated baseball player in Japan. You can be a rock star.
Mm-hmm.
It's just because of the culture. They just love their huge fan base. So even though I wasn't a long-time veteran of the surfing world tour, when I first went over there, aka is red in Japanese. So they're like, aka, so I had this nickname Red. And I got a great sponsor in Japan, this gentleman, Takeo Mitsui, super nice guy. He owned a chain of surf shops. He met through a common friend, someone else, a mutual friend, and just said, okay, I want to sponsor you. In Japan, when the tour comes to town, the big road show for the surfing contest, all the companies want to latch on to an international talent, whether it's US, Australia, and their deal is you come there a week early or stay a week after, and you go around and sign autographs at their locations for them. And the deal is when they come there, they pick you up from the airport, because it was really expensive, certain periods with the dollar. But, it'd be $40 just to get from the airport in tolls to somewhere in Tokyo. So they basically, it was like $30 to eat at McDonald's. It was crazy. They'd pick you up from the airport, take care of you, pay you maybe some on top of that, and so on. Well, since I was larger than most surfers and red hair, I was kind of they made it a personality, I guess you could say. And so I had hats, t-shirts, surfboard model. You got $12.50 from a surfboard, $1 for a hat. Mm-hmm. So it was a little royalty thing that most people in the United States didn't even know existed, really, to tell you the truth, because there's no internet. You got to think, you're like isolated. Yeah. Nowadays, it'd be all over social media and all this stuff, and you could buy it online. So I went there all these times, 2 times a year. The circuit went to Japan. So even after I went back to dental school, some people didn't know I was off the tour in school because you didn't have information that readily. So I was getting a royalty check for years because and on breaks, if I had one, I could fly to Japan and do promotions and still be like I never left. Like they didn't know. You didn't have instantaneous information.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So that actually, looking in hindsight, worked to my advantage tremendously. So when I was traveling around the world, I'd call my parents about once a month, collect call.
Mm-hmm.
How'd you do? I'd tell them the last few competitions because the magazine that covered the sport, Surf and Surf, hadn't even come out yet. It had to be printed. Like now we watch them live, streaming. They didn't know how I was doing for a month. I was in Europe. I'd be in France. I'd be surfing, and 3-4 competitions down the road, I'd have to call and tell them all of them at once how I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's crazy how convenient everything is, and all these kids, everyone takes it for granted.
Mm-hmm.
It's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it dispels a lot of the mystery. It's just gone. You can just find out anything with not much effort. By the way, Stephane, one of the things I didn't in talking with Scott at different events and different conversations, it should have been obvious to me, but since I've never surfed, most surfers, right, Scott? They're not very big people. They're kind of small people. And
exactly what I was wondering.
Yeah, most are probably 5'9". There's a couple bigger guys that are 6'2", 6'3", but that's rare. Mostly it's 5'9", 5'11", maybe. but they're skinny. They're not thick. They might be 140, 160.
Okay.
It's not uncommon. So I'm like 195, 200. To them, some of them I was like a giant.
Mm-hmm.
And just that alone, I had a little edge psychologically, a little intimidating factor. Not that I had any anger issues or anything, but
Right. Not that I had anger issues. No. But
no.
But it's interesting because it's not, here it's hockey. I mean, everybody's on the ice at the same time. You can have this kind of intimidation, but surfing, I mean, you're doing your thing, you're alone in the water. So how can you have that kind of impact on somebody else?
Yeah, when you're in a heat, you don't compete by yourself like a gymnast. Even though it's a subjective sport, there's 2 or 4 people in what they call a heat, a time portion, like 20 minutes, 15, 25. They're all out together. You're actually fighting for waves. It's speed, agility, power come into play. They changed this priority system because for that reason there were some fights in the water and various things. So they did a priority system where you had to paddle around a buoy, and once you paddled around, your color, your jersey, whatever the competition jersey you had on, up on, you look to the beach and they would show this person has priority yellow or blue gets the first pick of the wave.
Okay.
Now, before that, there was massive fights in the water. And I just missed that portion. The first year I came on, I would have loved that portion. It would have been to my advantage. I just came on, they started priority. But there was one guy, Wes Lane from Virginia, that was a top pro. He was probably 6'4". He had this wingspan that was so longer arms. You could paddle and beat the guy to the buoy. So I was also tall. I had good paddle power, so that became a thing. How fast can you get around to get first priority, to have first choice of the wave? So there was all kinds of tactics, and then there was just some guys weren't good strategy type minds, but they were just unbelievably talented. So I was more in the pretty good, but I used strategy to my advantage. I was like an overthinker, kind of overanalyzing everything and keeping notes in a little binder. And some guys just, they just go out and surf.
psychologically, how do you work that to your advantage through some sort of how would that work? How does that look for a psychological advantage of perhaps I can say intimidation?
It's not super prevalent, but some, they call them, mind games, like you hear. There's a competitor's area where the surfboards are, and you prepare, and it's quartered off so the public can't get to it, so just the competitors. And you're all all your stuff, there might be a pile or little lockers or some area, a board rack, and the guy you're about to compete with in 10 minutes has got his board, and you're changing right there, and they're getting ready, and sometimes words are exchanged, or glares, or kind of bump them by accident as you walk by them. Just like there's like
by accident.
Just by accident.
Just by accident.
This is just basic human nature stuff. It doesn't apply to surfing. It's just whatever gives you the edge or make them distracted. I mean, it's done all the time.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you've ever seen Pumping Iron with Schwarzenegger and Sergio Oliva and such, Schwarzenegger was absolutely a guru. He was the Yoda of intimidating people. And you would wonder, how can you? It's bodybuilding, and there's a panel of these men out there displaying their musculature and posing. Well, how do you intimidate them? It's really, really quite incredible what Schwarzenegger would do. Lou Ferrigno was a guy that he just took down psychologically. He would say to him, Lou, you're gonna win. You know, I can't beat you this time. He would just be playing with him all the time. Something like that, maybe, huh, Scott? Something along those lines.
Yeah, so most people, even if they're not into surfing, they've heard of Kelly Slater.
Yeah.
He is the GOAT of the surfing sport. He's got 11 world titles. I think the closest person to him has 4. And then there's a couple with 3 and 2 down the line. But like, I don't know if anyone's ever going to catch him. He's the youngest world champion, and he's the oldest. I mean, his lineage, I just covered span, and he's still competing. I mean, he finished in the top 10 last year, and he's 49.
Wow.
And guys are, these guys are 17 to 25 that he's competing against, and he still was beating them last year. He's got a little injury this year, so he's not doing the full circuit, but it's just amazing, the longevity. It's like, it's incomprehensible in any other sport, the span he has had and what he's accomplished. You know, it's unbelievable. Because it's not a team sport. I mean, it's just individual.
And how do you have an explanation for that? I mean, is it because he has everything, the talent, the way to intimidate, the way to... He has the whole shebang?
It's kind of all the above. He's known for mind games, and there's all these articles and things always written about it, and he never divulges anything, but there's always like, he'll come up right before a heat and on the beach before they get in. Most guys don't talk to each other. He'll come up and wish him luck and pat him on the back or shake their hand and something like, oh, and the announcers, well, he's really getting in their head now. It's hilarious because you don't really know. Is he just being nice? He's saying it. But his reputation is he just hates losing. Like, he'll want to beat you in dominoes, go fish, horseshoes, pool table. Like, he cannot lose at anything. He's so driven. And that's one thing on the list, the Stephane you mentioned. He's extremely flexible. There's these old pictures of him, like he's double jointed at the hips. He's got these big, flat feet. He's got all these things. You have to be super flexible for surfing, but yet also strength and agility. It's a very unique combination. And he's not that big. So in waves, if they're small, which was supposed to be a disadvantage for me, you can't generate a lot of speed because you don't have an engine. It's all body dynamics of standing up, squatting down, and moving the surfboard on the surface of the water to generate speed. It's totally gyrotonics of your body. That's how you go fast and maintain speed. It's very unique. There's nothing pulling you, pushing you would be the wave. But you have to put yourself in the right spot to go downhill on the wave to accelerate to the next maneuver. He's just a master at it. And he learned to surf in Cocoa Beach, which is some of the worst, mushy, least powerful waves probably in the world, which translate where he learned to generate speed on nothing. Well, a really good wave, you don't need to generate speed. You just learn how to control it and actually slow down to do turns. If you're going too fast, you'll just wipe out. Like, you have to control the G's when you turn. So that's what all the things made him the best. The psyche, the competition, the body, flexibility, like everything. Anyway, he'll never be matched in the sport of surfing. I really
maybe
maybe
in any sport. I mean, do you know anybody who's had? I mean, people listening to the podcast. Can you imagine somebody with that longevity that has that many championships? And
it's funny you say that. So there was an interview once. I can't remember who with where, but it was with Lance Armstrong. I'm not sure who did it. And Lance was trying to explain, because he had met Kelly and they talked and different promotions and things together. They just got to be, sort of friends or acquaintances. So Lance was trying to explain to Michael Jordan why Kelly Slater was probably the best athlete in the world.
Ooh, Jordan.
So he won surfing competition. He was a little kid, older, 1 foot, 50 foot, spanning every condition and age group. Like, who can cover all that besides being so specialized in just one thing on a court or a platform that's the same? No wave is ever the same. You can't go to a basketball hoop, shoot 1,000 shots every day or 100,000 and just get better.
Mm-hmm.
There's not that type of repetition. Every wave, it's nature. Every wave is different.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, that's the most talented athlete in the world. Youngest, oldest, that span, the conditions, the court he plays on is ever changing.
Uh-huh.
So he was trying to make a really good argument to Michael Jordan like that, because Michael kind of wasn't sure who he is, what he's doing, That would have been a great, just to sit there and listen to that one. I would have loved that.
I wonder, because you say Kelly Slater detests losing, as you mentioned you did as well. You came there to win and win you would do. For me, I wonder about being at peace when you have that rabid of a competition. But you did mention that when it comes to your orthodontic career, that there's a different perspective.
Yeah, I don't look at that as competition to me. That's just like two different worlds. It's funny you said about Jordan. His thing was, if guys would trash talk, it was the last thing they should ever do. If they ever got him pissed, he took, and all of a sudden he'd do 70 points. It was the worst thing you could ever do. And obviously, I'm not even close to that caliber or in the same stratosphere, but when I got mad, the adrenaline, it helped me tremendously. So sometimes I figured that out. I'd actually could get myself pissed off. It was kind of like, all right, I'd let just something bother me, or the guy got too close to me. I'd say stuff, whatever, it'd just get me right. And then that was it. All bets were off. I would do my best. With some people, if they got mad, they'd fall apart because they couldn't focus.
Exactly, because that's in boxing, for example. If you get angry, you'll lose your ability to perceive, and it's a perception that is physical as well as spiritual. That you'll lose it. The anger will blot it out. You'll fight their fight instead of your fight, for example. Now, Scott, how often do you go surfing? Do you schedule yourself to surf now?
Well, I joined my dad in '95, so there's been ebb and flows. In the beginning, I surfed a lot because I didn't have a lot of patience, so I had some free time. My whole thing, I came in with my dad, and at the time we just had this verbal agreement. Of course, it's family, so I said, I want to get my own patients. You do yours. I'm going to go out. I'm going to take Dennis to lunch. There wasn't super bookkeeping to where we knew exactly what's the overhead. So it was just 50-50. I get 50% of what I bring in. That was it. There was no mathematical formula, how we came to that. It was just, and I'm going to get my own patients. And so those in orthodontics have been around for a while. No, my dad used a single wing bracket that Unitech made, Chun Hung bracket. He got taught by goes with your hat, Gerry. So it was a single wing bracket, and it was mainly because he was taught beg technique at Fairleigh Dickinson. And so I was out traditional straight wire. I was like, I'm not using a single wing bracket. So I had to get my own bracket. So he had his patients, I had mine, totally different techniques. And so it was pretty interesting. And I just built my own clientele. Of course, we had great coverage for emergencies, covering each other's patients. But so that was, I said, okay, so when my patient, put all mine in the morning, in the afternoon, like block them away, so it looks like there's more people in the waiting room that first year. You know, don't put one person. Make sure you put one at 3, and then one 3:15 and 3:30, and then tell them the other stuff's booked. So I'd go surf in the morning if it was afternoon. If it was adult in the morning, I'd surf, and I'd try to surf, you know, in Florida when there's waves. And then all of a sudden I started getting busy, and my surfing was mainly on weekends or vacations. Now it's come full circle. I got really busy. I didn't surf for a while, and I wasn't taking care of myself. I could tell I was getting out of shape, and I was just focused on orthodontics and everything. Now it's like I'm doing better at figuring everything out as far as time management. I got the new doc. So she comes in February. I'm all ready to travel. COVID hits in March, a month later. And I'm like, oh, God, just when I was seeing the light in the tunnel, I have someone I could go travel. And then in May of the COVID year of 2020, my wife and I got COVID. Luckily, it was like the flu. It wasn't anything crazy. But it was so exciting because we checked off a box. We had COVID. Now we can travel. No anxiety. We felt pretty comfortable. We got natural immunity. And so as soon as certain places opened, we went surfing to Mexico. We went to the Maldives. So we started wherever was open and we could go without, you know, fanfare or a lot of barriers. We started traveling a little, and we're kind of looking forward to that as I train the new doctor and kind of get her up to speed and her confidence. It's been highs and lows. There's times that you're in Florida too. There might not be waves for 2 months.
Stephane?
What kind of training do you need besides, you know, surfing? What kind? Because you said you have to be really flexible. Are you a natural flexible guy, or?
No, I'm definitely not. I am no Kelly Slater, I'll tell you that. But you know, I try to do fitness and stretch and do various things. There's surfing, I guess the body movements, it's been explained to me, it's similar to golf. There's a lot of rotation, upper body, lower body going in different directions. And by the way, Kelly Slater is a scratch golfer. He's actually played in the Pebble Beach Pro-Am quite a few years. He's really good. And a lot of people that know about surfing or do both say that surfers are naturally good golfers. I haven't really gotten there, so.
I'm one of the things that well, your wife is quite accomplished too. Doesn't BB doesn't she wakeboard?
She was the 1990 World Wakeboard Champion and also kneeboard champion, world champion, the same year, 2 sports. That was the first year that they had a world championship. It was in Texas for wakeboarding. So it was very kind of the neophyte of the sport of having a world, you know, championship event. But when we met, she just wanted to learn how to surf. You know, she goes, "Oh, that's intriguing."
I just bet she did.
Yeah. So she just had no interest. She's probably been behind a boat about 4 or 5 times since, you know, we got married. That was back in 97.
Yeah.
So we just travel around surfing together, go on surfing trips. That's most of our vacations, you know.
That's nice.
Yeah, I've often thought that when there's something that, you can't just be an orthodontist, you can't just be a dentist. You have to be a complete person. I mean, you have to have other things that a person finds fulfilling.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the most, I think, important things, like, for example, my relationship with my wife is pre-COVID. I had done a substantial amount of world travel. My wife, on the other hand, does not want to go.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people are shocked. They say, God, he goes all over the world. China 6 times, Vietnam 6 times, Australia, I've lost count, South America, I can't remember. And you don't go? And Betty's comment is, well, okay, the hotel is nice. Is it as nice as my house? Okay, can the dog come along? How about my yard? I mean, so I think it's a really important, remarkable thing when you and your wife you're both emotionally driven, passionate about surfing. In my case, I wasn't, and I guess still am, although with COVID, I'm not sure where it lands anymore, with world travel and world adventure, and cultural adventure. And fortunately, in our relationship, it's like Betty, my wife's comment is, I have 2 favorite times of the day: when Gerry leaves the house and when he comes back, in that order. But I think we're relationship, and you could have the same thing with a professional life in your office. That if your team doesn't understand, or if the people running the business don't understand, that it's important to have complete human beings here, not just somebody who pushes teeth around. Hey Scott, would you describe yourself first as a surfer, or first as an orthodontist, or first what?
It's funny you should mention that. As you're talking, it's exactly what I was thinking. The big joke in the office is I'm a surfer with a part-time orthodontist. That's just the running joke, because our whole office is surfing themed, and we got old surfboards hanging on the wall, and photos, and some old articles of my father and myself and stuff, because that's kind of our thing, And my wife and I always joke, it's like, when's our next trip? We always book trips like a year out. And you just got to schedule around them, my staff, and they got to know when are they going to take their vacations and stuff. So, it's always like, now on your phone, you got all these little countdown apps. So it's like, all right, we're going to the Maldives next April, and you look on there, okay, it's 11 months, it's 10 months, 4 days, 5 minutes. And so our joke around the house is, when's the next trip? Where are we going? So we're just working to go on our next surf trip. It's kind of fun. You gotta, if you don't have that, sometimes that drives you like, okay, I gotta prepare, I gotta get in shape, or I gotta go to work, and then it just makes it funner instead of the mundane, just get up Groundhog Day and doing the same thing every day. That gets old. You gotta have something to look forward to. Not that I don't look forward to going to work and have great relationships with the staff, the patients, and we have fun. But that's something that's disconnected that you look forward to. It's great. Everyone's got to have something. If you don't like to go golf, or you like to go on cruises, you like to go wherever. But I'll tell you, once I had that chance to go on the world circuit, the travel bug,
Yeah.
I lived out of a suitcase for 3 years. Got used to it. And just seeing things and going around, it's just, once I leave the house to go to the airport, people are like, oh, I hate the flight. I don't care. I'll get a layover. I'll cruise around the airport. The journey started when I got dropped off at the curb. And you missed a flight, great. We'll do something. Or we'll have a layover, you're in Dubai. There's crazy stuff to see. Go to Singapore. The airport alone is a city.
Mm-hmm.
There's an orchid garden in it. I mean, it's just like, I was like, if you could ever just go to Singapore airport, people are like, airport? I was like, yeah, it's unbelievable. Like, you gotta have a long layover. They're like, I hate layovers. No. You gotta go to Singapore airport. There's like 4 stories, there's theaters, there's stuff, there's a hedges inside, it's a maze, it's like water fountain. It's crazy. They look at you like you're speaking another language.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny. It's like, you're missing out. The layover's free. It's like...
How affected are you by when you're on one of these surf trips and it's the Maldives or one of these very exotic areas? How affected do you get by a streak of bad weather where you can't go surfing?
It varies, and surfers are used to it. It's so weather dependent. It's Mother Nature. You book them really far out. There could be storms in the ocean, that are making waves, or could not, or the local weather could be horrible because the wind, the best waves are made usually from storms like 1,000 miles away, not the weather that's where you are. But when the waves get to where you are, the local wind can make the waves really nice and groomed, or can make them very stormy and choppy. And you like to go long enough that you've got it built in for a couple days of bad weather. And sometimes that's okay if you've gone a 10-day trip and one day in the middle is real rainy and you're already sunburned. Sometimes you need a break. Your body's just, you're dehydrated, you're sunburned. I mean, you might surf 3 or 4 times in a day. I mean, go paddle so many miles when you go surfing an hour. I mean, it's a workout. Go work out 4 times in a day. See how it feels. But you get used to it if you've done it a long time. But my wife gives me a hard time. She says, you can just paddle the whole time. I said, well, I'm just used to it. It's muscle memory. She paddles in the pool a month before the trip every day with the surfboard tied, to the tree. And she's paddling to try to get her paddle muscles ready. Yeah, it's funny. We just joke about it. It's like a running joke. So,
what's the speed you can reach?
Oh, paddling?
When you're surfing.
Oh, surfing?
Yeah.
Well, a long time ago, you didn't know. Nowadays, you have different watches. The Apple Watch does it, but there's very specific companies that make these watches. Rip Curl, which is a surfing company, they make a watch that's GPS. It syncs to the satellite, and then you come in and you download everything Bluetooth on the app on your phone, and it shows your speed, your top speed, your average speed, how many miles you paddled, how many miles you surfed, each ride, the length of the ride. So some of our guys, we go on trips, we compete who could get the longest ride. It's always, it's a little trash talk, and it's kind of fun. Not like competition, but yeah, it's still like a little competition among friends, And so that's always fun. That's kind of a neat feature. I hated that. I thought it was hokey. And then my wife and my sister, they all got together and got me that watch, quite a few years ago. Now I think it's just the greatest thing ever.
So
what's the speed you can reach? What's the speed you can reach? What's the fastest you went on that watch?
I have on one, I have a 30.5 miles an hour. And then the longest wave I have is 675 yards. So it's almost 7 football fields.
Jeez.
So right now, those are my 2 little benchmarks for personal benchmarks that I've got to try to beat. I got to kind of jump over those, and then I'll feel like I accomplished another goal. And if
it's
not,
you against yourself.
Yeah. It's just fun.
Hey, Stephane, have you ever been surfing?
That's How did
that work out for you?
They have my picture now, and there's a big X on it. Not anymore. You know what? I remember I was in California with Frederick, and we went there. We decided to go to a surf class. You know, I mean, we were there. So, and first
Where were you at?
We were in San Diego.
Thank you.
And the first thing that the guy said, well, when you enter the water today, you have to go with your heels. Is it your heels? Because there's some rays? Stingrays.
Yeah.
So this is the first thing he said, and this is a way to scare them. I was like, you want to be on your surfboard, but it's only we did one course, and I had a natural talent for it. Yeah, no, I never, I could not get up. But that's
So
it.
there was no hang 10 going on.
No, but we had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That's what counts.
And some very incredible pictures.
All right. We got to see those sometime.
Yeah, no, but on the pictures it looks like I know what I'm doing.
Was that like Photoshop?
Oh, I'm paddling.
Yeah. The time.
And you, Gerry, did you ever try?
Yeah, I did when I was. I'd never seen a palm tree, Scott, until I was. I think I was 15. My parents would go to Florida. Every few years or such as that. Well, when I was 15, and my brother was 16, they took us. I'd never been on a plane before either. Mm-hmm. And when I saw palm trees for the first time, I thought, if I left Earth, I mean, Scott, that could be hard for you to ID with because you grew up with them. Uh-huh. But I thought, all right, we're going to try this surfing thing. And the thing I was most proud of, my greatest success, was that I didn't die. I mean,
So you won. You didn't die.
That is I gave it my best shot,
yeah.
But I think that I didn't take a lesson. I just got the board and thought, yeah, I can do that. I can do athletic stuff. Mm-hmm. And I didn't get my teeth knocked out. That was an accomplishment. I think I decided at that point, boys, that a fish encounters its environment like this, right?
Yeah.
Its sense organs, a fish's sense organs are on the top of its head. If it has a head, it has a head, a fish head. It's got in the nose, the eye. It's all it's there. The fish. I have my sense organs on the front of my skull. I encounter my environment like this, not like this. I decided I am a bipedal land animal. That's it. Mm-hmm. One time, one and done. That was it, Scott. That's it. So, I mean, Scott's heard this before that I have. I'm just really hypnotized by someone who can do that.
Yeah.
I mean, even get up. I mean, I could water ski. I was actually half deep.
Yeah.
I wasn't half bad. I'm not sure I was half good either. But when someone has this type of accomplishment, I mean, I'm curious. Can you describe, Scott? I mean, I went scuba diving a couple times, and the thing that I really liked about it, really, besides seeing this stuff underwater and be incredibly aware, this is not where I belong. This is like not Earth. Mm-hmm. But the feeling, Scott, of flying, I felt like, and I was, you're flying through the water. Now, what about surfing? When you're doing that, when you're surfing on something, and you said that ride was a few football fields, yeah? I mean, can you describe emotionally, or how does that make you feel?
I don't. There's probably one of the best marketing phrases that was done was by the company Billabong.
Mm-hmm. All right.
And they had this whole ad campaign. It was like ... only a surfer knows the feeling.
Uh-huh.
And that, they nailed it. You can't describe being on a slope, coming down and gaining speed because it's gravity. And then you don't let all the speed dissipate. You have to save enough and don't wait to go back up, because then you come back down and gain. That's the gyration.
Mm-hmm.
So you just keep. Part of what I love to just go as fast as I can. I just, growing up in Florida, like I was saying about Kelly, in Florida, it's really hard to surf bad waves. So Florida surfers do really well around the world. Because if you can surf a junk wave, it's easy to surf a good wave.
Mm-hmm.
So now they train and they look at it different. But a while ago, like Hawaii surfers had a hard time coming to Florida at a competition and surfing a 1 foot wave. Because they used to not even want to surf like that. They wouldn't go to those places.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's more sophisticated. They actually go to bad places in Hawaii to train on crummy waves, so they can, compete in that kind of surf. But the fact that you can just turn and go fast, slow down, redirect, I can't really describe it. It's pretty unique. And you said the first time you saw waves or palm trees is kind of opposite of me. I didn't see snow till I was about 22, 23. I actually went out to Colorado to Breckenridge to snowboard with a group of friends. And I got really, really bad advice. They're like, oh, good skateboarder, surfer, you don't need a lesson. Just go out there, rent the stuff and go. I thought I was going to die. I was so bruised up at the end of that day. I fell 1,000 times just trying to go down the kiddie slope to the little kiddie chair to get back up, and cussing and yelling and just at myself, totally fish out of water. Accomplished at something to go downhill that gravity helps you go, and I couldn't do it. I just kept bump, bam, bam, bam. All I needed was a lesson to give me like 3 or 4 hints of basics. I would have been fine. But I listened to my stupid friends that surfed and said, no, you got this. And to this day, if anyone goes, I said, please take a lesson. Like, don't think because you can surf or skateboard, because they think it's the same muscles and same stuff. But yeah, it's hard, and no one could have described that to me. I had to learn the hard way.
Stephane, so being from Quebec, I've never asked you. So, I mean, do you snow ski yourself a lot?
Mm-hmm.
You
been
do?
skiing since I was 5. And you know what you're saying? We were saying the same thing about skiers here, because we have so bad conditions that a lot of time we have to ski on ice. So people here learn to ski on ice. So when they get out to mountains where there's real natural snow, they get real good because of that. It's one of the reasons. They're skiing in bad conditions. So when you go to something that is wow. Yeah, but no, I've been skiing for a long time.
But you ski, you don't snowboard?
I ski, I don't snowboard. I tried snowboarding. I had the same experience as Scott. It still hurts a little bit. Here.
Yeah.
I've never skied in my life. I've only snowboarded since then, and I've gone on a trip out, actually with a mutual friend of Gerry's that Eric Lowenhop is. We go out with this guys group. We've gone out to Utah for a while, and we haven't gone, of course, the last year or two because of COVID. But we actually went in January. Right before it hit.
Okay.
And then we had to cancel this past winter. So
Yeah, I think it's an interesting thought experiment to hone your skills in less than optimal conditions, because that's what you've been describing.
I'll tell you one thing, you guys, I've seen your podcasts. They're very interesting. One thing you would probably find interesting that still to this day is just, it's a challenge for me. There's the surfing world and there's the dentist world. In the surfing world, I am extremely OCD, too picky, micromanage everything, and just control freak. As a surfer in the orthodontic world, I'm too laid back.
Really?
I don't care enough about things. Like, you don't have enough attention to detail. Like, I can't win. I'm these two, like, totally different mindset of people that, like, oh, you're too uptight. The other one's like, well, you're too laid back. It's kind of almost have to switch on and off, or just kind of stay there and not really. It's been that way, 25, 30 years hanging out. You go on a trip with dentist stuff to a meeting. It's a totally different atmosphere than a bunch of surfers that just want to hang out. Yeah, it's a little different.
So you're
But
saying,
don't you think that maybe in the surf world it's you, yourself, and you, and in your office it's you have the team, you have people that will be there and that you can count on them?
Yeah, it's a culture of, you've got, and this is not competitive surfers, just surfers in general. If they're competitive, it might be a different mindset. But the dentistry world, we're all into this millimeters and everything's exact, and we have systems in place. A lot of guys, you go on vacation, they just surfing is very laissez-faire, just relaxed. No big deal. Everything's kind of, hey, dude, everything's, So that's always interesting to jump hanging out with this group of friends or that group of friends. It's almost like a human nature experiment of priorities and different stuff.
And how about your dad? Which, I met your dad, I think twice at the most, if maybe only once. But when you, as far as his personality, because you and your dad were both inducted into the East Coast Surfing Hall of Fame, isn't that right?
Yes.
And I think I'm right that that's the only time a father and son have ever had that acknowledgement. Isn't that right?
So far, it's the only father and son combo.
And what's your perception of your dad? Because I think you've described remarkably, in a remarkably interesting and well-fashioned, how you feel about it. How about your dad? Did you think he felt the same? Were there some noticeable differences?
A little bit. My dad's just the most easygoing guy ever. Like, the only time I ever saw him mad was at me. He would just grab the belt buckle, and I knew what was coming next. But no one else. I never saw him angry at anybody ever. He never pushed anything on anybody, help anybody anytime. Stop what he's doing if someone needed help. He was never high strung. Just kind of go with the flow, and I'm definitely more uptight and anal about some things than my dad ever was. But he would accomplish things and do it, but it wasn't outwardly. He just pivot, go do it, take care of it. There was not a lot of emotion involved. I'm the only one that I think jerked his chain as a kid. I look back, I was like, God, I'm surprised he didn't kill me. I was such a brat sometimes. But, it was great. I had 3 sisters, so my dad was like my older brother. You know, skateboarded, surfed, we went everywhere, you know, did stuff. I was just tagging along.
This is sort of what the Odd Couple format is about. Is we really don't want to talk about the same old thing. We just don't want to talk about teeth. You know, that's the oldest thing in the world. You get a bunch of dentists together, and they're like, you know, a bunch of undifferentiated mesenchymal cells looking for enamel. I mean, or looking to resorb their roots. I mean, it's boring. So,
Well,
Scott,
that's great. I'm glad you didn't want to ask my percentage of Invisalign versus braces, or how many stars do I have. It's like one of the few times I talk with dentists that they don't get into like dental stuff. I mean, I could talk about surfing all day or traveling. That's fun.
Of course.
well, Scott, thanks a lot for talking with us, and I mean, it's a unique experience, Stephane. No, I mean, a professional surfer. What?
That's it.
Where's that coming from?
This is what we want. This is what we look for in this podcast adventure.
It was an honor you guys even asked. I felt privileged. I enjoy all your different podcasts. You have a lot of big variety, diverse backgrounds, and that's what makes it fun. So,
thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
to be a part of it.
we have.
Wait, don't forget.
Oh, yeah, there. Yeah,
The Silver Surfer.
the Silver Surfer and the Odd
Couple.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank
Scott.
you, guys. Appreciate
Hey, thank
it.
you very much.
As all surfers do.
Here you have it. Now, if you like this video, either you're a surfer or not, subscribe to this channel, hit the bell, and give us the thumbs up. And don't forget, hang loose and have fun making the move.